to myself again. But it's the only...
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Sunday night. It's the day after Newcastle managed to beat Burnley 3-1, a result none of us really expected. And I'm joined tonight by Ian Mearns, the MP for Gateshead, a regular on the show. Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Steve. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Cheers.
Yeah, good to have you on, mate. I nearly started at 5 past because there's 5 past Man United at this current moment in time. Man United losing at home 5-1 to Tottenham, and they're down to 10 men, of course, but they were playing badly before they lost the man. We're not going to shed any tears over that, Ian.
No.
Let's talk about Newcastle, and I really didn't see that coming. I've got to be perfectly honest, especially with Bruce's outburst at the press conference the day before, and a lot of rumours flying around of arguments between this one and that one. But it was a really good performance in the first half. Second half, not so good. But regardless of that, we got 3 goals and we got 3 points.
Well, I think you've got to say it's a pleasing result. Obviously, I think we would like to see the performances continue to improve. You can only play and beat what's put in front of you. I think Burnley look like they're in trouble. And I've got a lot of time for Sean Dyche as a manager, but I think they're a club that will struggle this season. They don't seem to have a huge amount of resources on the players' front at the moment. So, but we've got to give credit where credit's due. A good win, 3-1. You would have taken that, taken the hand off for that before the start of the game.
I presume your man of the match was the same as everybody else's, Alan Saint-Maximin.
I was thinking about Hendrick. No, Alan Saint-Maximin, absolutely. The turn of pace he's got. And it was interesting to watch the way in which the Burnley defence just backed off him when he got his goal. The twists and turns, obviously wrong foot people, and then he puts a lovely shot into the corner of the goal. So absolutely fair play to the lad, and a great assist for Callum Wilson's goal as well. Again, beat the defender with a fantastic turn of pace, but a lovely ball across the box. And you've got to give credit to the lad. And the thing is, he takes punishment as well. So he gets up and gets on with the job. So that's very, very pleasing. And I'm obviously also pleased for Callum Wilson, 2 goals. And by the way, what's happening in Newcastle getting penalties?
I know. It's never been known, has it? It's never been known at all. But we've also got somebody who can put them in the back of the net, which makes a welcome change. You mentioned Saint-Maximin and the fact that they stood off him for the goal, and you also mentioned the attention that he was drawn. And Burnley just seemed to come with a game plan. I don't know whether Vinnie Jones had done the team talk with Burnley before they stepped on the pitch, but it was just hack him down at all costs. It was a little bit nasty to watch. And Bardsley, I still don't know to this day how Bardsley didn't get sent off.
I couldn't agree more. I think their game plan was just to be annoying and off the ball, pushing and shoving. I think they've got a nerve to complain about Callum Wilson, pushing the defender for the first goal. They were like off the ball, doing all sorts of stuff all day, and I think they got away with it largely. What is it? 3 bookings they had, I think. And Bardsley, absolutely correct, could well have been easily sent off. For what he was up to. So that's it's annoying, and I think it does spoil the game at that level. It's not what you expect in the Premiership, frankly.
You mentioned Hendrick when we're talking about man of the match jokingly there, but Hendrick seems to be getting played out of position a little bit. I don't think he's getting the opportunity to play where he wants to. Bruce seems set on the Hayden-Shelvey combination. Hendrick's, he wants to play him because he signed him, but it's a bit like square pegs and round holes. He's playing him out of position, and I think that's probably why we're not seeing the best of Hendrick.
Well, I think that's quite possibly right, but at the minute, I'm a bit concerned that Hendrick seems to hold the game up a bit. When we've got players with pace, and Hendrick just seems to be hanging on to the ball a little bit too long, or playing it back, or playing it inside, and and you know, I'm sure he'll settle into the team in time. But at the moment, that's a worrying early sign from my perspective.
A couple of other players I wanted to give a mention to were Kraft. Again, I think when we were doing the live broadcast yesterday, there was a collective groan from everybody when we saw that he was in the team. But to be fair, I think in the air, against a Burnley team that often carry a threat in the air, he actually did really well, and he was close behind St. Maximin for me as man of the match yesterday.
I think he had a pretty good game. I would also highlight the central defence. I thought the central defence played really quite well against that aerial threat, you know. And you know, I'm not his biggest fan, but I thought Carl Dolo, acquitted himself really quite well as well. So you know, it's obviously, I think if Dubravka was fit, I would put him straight back into the side. But you know, I think you've got to give credit where credit's due, and Dolo played really quite well. And you know, when he did spill the ball or not clear it as cleanly as you would want, a bit like Jordan Pickford, at least Newcastle's defence managed to clear up for him, you know.
Yeah, I think if you go through old episodes of NUFC Matters from last season with me, Malcolm and Gibbo, and obviously a lot of the ones from this season, Joe Linton is never somebody who gets mentioned, you know, with a lot of praise. But the last few games, we've seen a different Joe Linton. And again, yesterday, he just did the simple stuff. He held the ball up. He laid the ball off. He looked for an easy pass. He won a header. He got stuck in. He got his second booking yesterday. Nobody minds you taking a booking if it's in the right area. There's definitely been a change in mindset for Joe Linton, hasn't there?
Well, I think there has, and I think he's probably playing a role that he's more used to. And I think the pressure's off him to a certain extent because he's not the one who's expected to be the main striking threat. And I, you know, I think that he looks like a reasonable link player. I mean, look, you know, we've had these conversations over the last few weeks, and I still think there's a player in there, honestly, Steve. And I just hope that pressure being off him for being the main striking threat might just actually, you know, we'll get the best out of him, hopefully. But let's wait and see, though.
Yeah, you touched on Callum Wilson. Obviously, great to see him score now 4 goals in 4 games. And there's just something about him, isn't there? He runs off the ball. He's running into channels. He's chasing people down. He's got a great turn of pace. But most importantly, there was that Gary Lineker kind of fox in the box moment yesterday. The Alan Shearer was in the right place at the right time. And when the ball came in from St. Maximin, it was just a toe poke in. And that's what you're looking for, isn't it?
Well, that's right. You know, you want your strikers, you know, obviously you want your strikers to be able to score great goals, but you also want them to be really efficient in that sort of 6-yard box area as well. You know, and there's a fundamental difference between players who score great goals and a great goal scorer, from my perspective. And you know, and what you want is a great goal scorer, somebody who takes the chances. And by the way, I understand that the stats still pretty much about we're just about scoring every shot on target, aren't we? You know, it's pretty much up there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a weird stat, but it is a good one. Tottenham 6 now, Manchester United 1. Pogba conceded a penalty and Harry Kane has put it in the back of the net. The only bad thing about that is Harry Kane steps another goal closer to Alan Shearer's Premier League record. I always grimace when Harry Kane scores, I've got to be honest. But yeah, all in all, how would you assess the first few games for Newcastle? The first part of the season is over. We're going into an international break. Newcastle in the quarterfinals of the League Cup and sitting now 7th in the league.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you would have taken that at the outset. I think by the look of it, it looks like we caught West Ham on an off day. I think Brighton certainly caught us on an off day. I mean, you know, I think that's the only 3 points they've got, Brighton. And, you know, but I mean, they made us look, I thought, pathetic on that particular showing. So, you know, I'm just hoping that we're not going to have a complete Jekyll and Hyde season where, you know, we can beat some and then get Haydens off others, because, you know, we want to see some consistency. And, okay, I still don't think the side is sort of top 6 level at all. but let's try and actually consolidate by doing the things that we didn't do last season, i.e. beating the teams who are like looking like they're going to be at the bottom end. You know, we need to be beating those teams on a regular basis. I mean, I can't remember if it was like 9 or 11 points that we got against the bottom 4, you know, last season, and it's just not good enough. You know, that's where you make yourself safe. You know, if you get the results against the teams who are hovering around that sort of bottom 4 or 5, well, that's when you can be safe, like well before Easter. You know.
Yeah, we're going to go to questions now. Plenty coming in as always. If you want to send a question, just drop it into the comments and we'll try and get through as many as possible tonight. Lee Taylor says, evening, I see that Bruce has more or less said that he's ruling out any players joining the club unless they're on loan. Do you think we need to improve any areas before tomorrow? And if so, who would you bring in? Bit of chat as well on the comments about Theo Walcott, you know, potentially coming in as a loan. Is there any positions you would like to see strengthened in before the window closes?
I still would like to see a creative central midfielder, frankly. And, you know, we seem to be a bit accident prone when it comes to injuries, particularly for defenders. So, you know, maybe another decent defender would be really, really quite useful. And if Callum Wilson gets injured, who's going to score goals?
Yeah, very true. I mean, obviously we've got Dwight Gale still on the books, and you know, he could potentially come back. But you're right. Joe Linton won't be the answer, and neither will Andy Carroll, I don't think. No. James Brown, he says, so far this season we've been able to get 7 points on the board and into the quarterfinals of the Cup, but performances haven't been great. Do you think this lies at the feet of Bruce, the players, or is it both? Good question, James.
Well, yeah. I mean, the manager. It's his side. I mean, he's had time to bring people in. So it's his side. If he's been allowed to have a big influence over who's brought into the club, and of course with the squad that he's got, he picks the players that go onto the pitch. I think I would question Steve Bruce's capability of actually changing a game plan effectively once a game gets underway and if stuff starts going wrong. And that's, I think that's worrying. And you know, look, we've got 3 points at West Ham. We beat Burnley yesterday, and we've got a point. How we got a point at Tottenham, I'll never know. I mean, you know, charmed life our goal had, and then again, you know, the goalkeeper had a good game, but he had to. I can't remember how many times, by the way, I've been to Spurs in the past and watching on the telly last week where, you know, we've actually been to Spurs and our goalkeeper has been the best player on the pitch by a long, long way. And we've got results. We have got results there. We're a bit of a sort of, we've got a bit of an Indian sign over Tottenham. So, you know, look, it is what it is. I just hope that we can get some consistency. And I just hope that we don't get shown up too much when we do play against the teams who've got what looks like much more mobility than we have. Yeah,
Gary McAlpine says we didn't get penalties last season because we didn't get any bugger in the box, which is a good point. 1892 Mags is hoping that Manchester United will be playing exactly the way that they are today when we resume after the international break. John Askew says he doubts Walcott is as effective as he was a couple of years ago, and he's probably not as quick. No. Fungo Freddy is going back onto the treatment that St. Maximum got yesterday. He says it reminds him of the treatment that Diego Maradona used to get whilst he was at Barcelona. Anybody who's quick, who's got a bit of skill, is always going to end up on his backside. He's always going to be a target. John's also asking, am I the only one who hates international breaks? Are you a fan of international football, Ian?
Not massively, you know. I like watch. This might seem perverse given what we've been through for the last 13 years, but I like watching Newcastle, you know, and I just can't get excited about international football. I'm afraid, just can't get excited about it.
Me neither, to be honest. Even that World Cup run that we had last time round, I found it very difficult to get into the flow of it. It didn't feel like 1990. That was the best year for the World Cup ever, you know, and Gaza and, you know, Beardsley and Waddle and Sir Bobby and, you know, I think we've had our moment, haven't we? That was it. And unfortunately, I just get lost in international football. Jose Mourinho obviously gets lost as well. I don't know whether you saw that today. His interview before the game, he had to apologise for calling Gareth Southgate Gary.
All right.
He called him Gary, so he's actually had to apologise. He thought that Gareth was short for was either short or long for Gary. Bizarre situation, but he actually apologised live on TV for saying that. Troll says the only player coming in is Vilka, which I wouldn't be surprised if you're right there. Go on, Ian.
Well, I mean, I've known a few Garys in the time, but I've never got them mixed up with Gareths. I must admit, people who are called Gareth tend to be called Gareth, and that's it. But for goodness' sake, the guy's Portuguese. It's only his third language, isn't it? So.
Yes, true. Fungo says Wilson's a great reader of the game. It's a shame we haven't had one for a long time. Yeah, I mean, he equaled Les Ferdinand's record. I was surprised it's been that long since anyone had actually got into that. Got 4 and 4. I mean, quite. It's a great start for him. I bet he just wishes that there was fans at the Gallowgate when he scored his first goal there. Absolutely,
yeah. I would have loved to have been up at the back of the Gallowgate to watch that. That's where I sit, up the back of the Gallowgate. So it's. It's great to see, though. It's great to see actually getting a player who knows what to do in and around the penalty area, in and around the 6-yard box, and some maximum. You've got to give the lad absolute credit, because that was a great cross that he put across for that Callum Wilson goal.
Yeah, it was. Stu says, afternoon, lads. ASM was the difference last night. Burnley just kicked him out of the game and the referee did nout. Can't disagree with you there. Tom saying, do we think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will be sacked? Who do you think is going to be the first manager sacked in the end? Because it's always an interesting one. It's always one that people have a bet on as well, usually at the start of the season. And I think what you said at the start there, probably my mind's changed a little bit. I had David Moyes down as my favourite to go, but a lot of teams are just beating each other, aren't they, at the moment?
Yeah. I've got an awful feeling that we won't be having our ex-player who's at Fulham around by Christmas.
Scott Parker.
I think that he could be the one to go, because they're not only getting beat, but are getting beat well on most games, and therefore I think Scott Parker might be the one to go first. Because and of course, we've already had a situation where there's been a public disagreement between him and the owner as well.
Yeah, that's never good. It's never a good sign. Both those teams got beat again today. West Brom were beaten. Fulham were beaten, and it's looking like a one-season wonder for both of them. Leeds obviously bucking the trend, and Leeds look good again yesterday. And I mean, there's been a lot made about the manager, but he's got a really good team there. And when you think about Bamford as well, he's never really produced Bamford. He's always been the man to get teams promoted, but when it's come to the Premier League, he's always struggled. But although he didn't score yesterday, he missed out on the record of being the first Leeds player to score 4 and 4. He actually played his part. He's it's good. It's nice to see a team like that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a big fan of Leeds, because I remember what it was like back in the 60s and the 70s when we played them, and it was always a rough place to go from our perspective, I'm not a great lover of Leeds United, but they do look a decent side, and they play with great pace and composure. So I think Bielsa's doing a great job there. I mean, he is a good manager. There's no doubt about that, and the respect that's shown to him by other managers, within this league, but also around the world, it tells its own story. They do rate him.
He's got a touch of the Jose's around him. He's come in with this mystique around him. He's got his little ways. He obviously doesn't speak English. He uses a translator. He sits on his bucket at the sidelines, which is, he's got. That's what Mourinho was like when he first came into the Premier League, wasn't it?
I don't think Marino sat in a bucket.
No, he didn't have a bucket, but he just had that air of mystique about him, and he was,
I like
the special one in that. Yeah. It's exciting. Tom says this got talked about a little bit yesterday. Do you think Carl Darlow would have an England cap soon? He's been doing good so far in goal. I think Dubravka will be having competition to get back in goal. I think we all said yesterday Dubravka would be straight back in our teams. But the word has come out that Darlow was being watched yesterday, and he wouldn't have done himself any harm, if there was somebody from England watching. Whereas Nick Pope, to be honest, didn't really cover himself in glory, did he, for Burnley?
Nor did Jordan Pickford, did he? So from that perspective, he might have a shout, but I would be surprised, frankly. I would be surprised.
Yeah, I think he'd rather cement his place in Newcastle's team first, Tom. Chris Cooper says, I thought Henrik had a really good game, to be honest, lads. Work rate second to none. I just think he's getting played out of position, Chris. I've got to be perfectly honest. I just think, unfortunately, Bruce has decided that Shelvey and Hayden's he's two in midfield. Henrik's probably going to count himself, look, he's getting a game. And, Matty Longstaff and Sean Longstaff, who at the time last season were looked as though we want to play them both together, are struggling to get a look in. So, it's interesting. But it's all about opinions. Barry Hogan says Dubravka is twice the keeper Darlow is. There is no choice if he's fit. Chris says Steve Bruce is looking to ride the wave, but when the seas get rough, he will sink, not swim. That's very poetic, that, Chris. Actually, we'll wait and see. Can't wait to play Man United. I don't get the Pogba thing. He does nothing special. Yeah, it's a strange one, that, isn't it? I mean, Man United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer seem to have to play Pogba, don't they? Whenever he's fit, or when he decides to play, they have to play him.
Yeah. Oh, that's he's an enigma, Pogba, from my perspective. But I'm not sure exactly what it is about him. I'm just really not sure. I'm just trying to think who reminds me of, sort of other players of that like over the years, and there's something about him. You just kind of put your finger on it. Enigmatic, I would have to say, is the word that comes to mind. But I mean, who would they play instead of him? I would guess at the minute Man United, because they're struggling by the look of it, which is no bad thing.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Phil Carty's got a question for you, Ian. He says, any more chat on bringing Masters in front of a committee?
I mean, it would be up to the DCMS select committee to bring him in, and I do need to have a word with the chair, and it's Julian Knight, so we'll try, see if we can get them interested in bringing him in front of the committee. I mean, he still hasn't replied to 3 letters I've sent him now, and this is on behalf of an all-party parliamentary group, which I chair. And, I think it's not only showing discourtesy to me as an individual, but also to the members of the group, who are a cross-party group of MPs, 30 or 40 MPs now as members of that cross-party group for football supporters. And he's just not answering our correspondence. And obviously the other thing is as well is, we're still waiting for some answers on what's going to happen about the next tranche of televised football games, because there's still some games that haven't been sorted out. I think the Man United one, for instance, is one of them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Just looking through a couple of reports on NUFC.com just to see whether there was any movement in the transfer window, and talk about potentially going to either Watford or Nottingham Forest. Obviously, he's out of contract next summer, so Newcastle looking to push him on. Nothing to report yet, though, on the futures of Henry Save, Archaf Lazar, Rolando Aarons, or Deandro Yedlin. But Monday, of course, sees the window close at 11 o'clock. Window for deals between Premier League and Championship, of course, doesn't close until Friday week, which is October the 16th at 5 o'clock. Incomings, there has been another suggestion. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, potentially on loan. Obviously, he's currently at Chelsea. The 24-year-old England international midfielder is looking to get some game time away from Stamford Bridge, because he's finding his opportunities limited there. Is that a player you would fancy coming in? Is that a creative midfielder that you would like to see?
Well, the thing is, he's proven Premier League footballer, and I think he would be a good addition to the squad. Whether he would get a game every week would be another matter. But I thought there was also speculation linking him with either Italy and another club in England as well. So I mean, that would be far from being a cut and dried deal. But I think he would bring. I think the one thing about him, he seems to have pace, doesn't he? So that would be good from that perspective. I mean, I would like to see our overall game not just relying on pace coming from the people who are in the front line. I would like to see some pace being generated in midfield as well.
Okay, final score at Old Trafford. Not often you hear this. Manchester United 1, Tottenham 6. Unbelievable. Other games, obviously, today. Leicester lost at home to West Ham 3-0. Southampton 2, West Brom 0. Arsenal 2, Sheffield United 1. Wolves 1, Fulham 0. And the late game tonight, God, it's been a feast of football today, Ian. Aston Villa take on Liverpool. So Liverpool will be hoping to win by more than 2 goals and return to the top of the table, just above Everton. Merseyside battle at the top of the table there. Lots of comments coming in, as always. Jason Carter says, if a player is targeted by teams like ASM game after game, what can be done to protect them? It's blatantly obvious the intention is to take him out. You cannot really protect them other than getting your other players to protect them, which of course takes them away from their positions on the field, I suppose, Ian.
Yeah, well, I mean, a technique which teams have perfected over many, many years. I remember Arsenal used to do this back under George Graham. Was you look at the dangerous player from the other side, and then you foul them on a rotational basis, and that's so in other words, you don't have the same player marking them and fouling them. Otherwise, that's picked up by the referee. But you get one player to foul them, then a different player to foul them, and then a different player to foul them, and so you get that rotational effect. And okay, the referee will sometimes pick up on it, but because it's a different player every time, it becomes attritional on the player who's the target. And I was really surprised that Bardsley wasn't punished more vigorously yesterday for what was being done. But I mean, it is a technique which clubs have perfected over the years. Leeds used to do it under Revy, going back all those years,
Yeah, Wimbledon were quite good at it too. Basically just assaulting players on the pitch and getting away with murder. But things have changed. Camera angles have changed. We've got VAR. We've got fourth officials. It's third officials, fourth officials. The whole game has changed from those days. Zendub says
36 cameras now. 36 cameras at Premier League games is what I'm told. Is so everything should be covered. On a pitch the size of a football pitch with 36 camera angles.
Yeah, and they still miss some things. It's unbelievable, really. Zenzub says, I hope we go aggressive early against this Man United side in 2 weeks. Go for the throat with Allinson, Maximum, Fraser, Wilson and Almiron up front. Front four. Wow. I mean, I'm not quite sure Brucey will get that adventurous, but they're certainly there for the take. And I've got to be honest, I've never seen a weaker Man United back four. And when you listen to Gary Neville talk about them, he's not very complimentary about them either. And that guy knows a thing or two about playing in good back fours at Manchester United. Indeed. John Askew says, Wilson from Liverpool on loan would be an excellent loan signing. Did well at Derby and Bournemouth. Feel free to tell me I've got it wrong. Would you be up for that?
But again, somebody who's got experience, so why not? You look, if Steve Bruce thinks we need bodies in, to strengthen the squad and to give us more options, I would welcome any additions before the closure of the deadline.
As he's asking, which other MPs not from Newcastle support Newcastle? He says Tony Blair's a Newcastle fan. I know that much, but not sure who else. Was Tony Blair a Newcastle fan, or was that just a PR stunt?
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. No, I'm not.
Did he play head tennis with Kevin Keegan or something? Was that?
I think he did. I think he did.
And then suddenly that makes him a Newcastle fan. I mean, there is other MPs, isn't there? There are Newcastle fans on both sides of the house.
Ian Lavery is a Newcastle fan. Chion Woora, obviously, because she comes and sits next to me in the ground quite often. And there's a couple of Conservatives actually I think there's a Conservative MP from Lincolnshire called Caroline Johnson, who I believe is a Newcastle fan, and I think David Johnson and they're both members of the Education Select Committee, and they've both kind of told me on the quiet that they're both sort of like Newcastle United. So there we go.
Matt Hancock seems to have a Newcastle shirt behind him when he's on the TV, doesn't he?
No, I think that was something that he got at a show races and the red card event in Parliament, and I think he was presented that by Shola Ramiobi, but I don't think he's a Newcastle fan. You know, I wouldn't want him.
I've got to be honest; it doesn't strike me as a Newcastle fan type. I had him more down as a bit of a Chelsea old boy or something, you know.
I think he looks like a glory hunter, doesn't he? You know. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, John Askew says ASM made it clear on Sky he wants to play number 10. If he does not play there, that makes Joe Linton's inclusion more difficult. Yeah, I saw that. It was interesting. Did you see his interview at the end? And you know, it was Yeah, did I? And fair play to the lad. I've got a funny feeling that he's still struggling to actually grasp what some of the questions are about. Like but because people use like sort of English football idiom and sometimes players like that who are still learning the language, to be fair, do struggle to get the actual meaning of the questions. Yeah, I'm not sure what industry Sean works in. He says, any news when we can go back to work after 10 o'clock, mate, as I do night shift?
I think you can go to work after 10 o'clock in every industry but hospitality. I think that's the problem, I must admit, I was asking questions in the comments about it last week because I just think it's bonkers, having everybody turf out of all the public houses, all the hotels, all the restaurants, all at the same time. I just think it's folly. I must admit.
No, me too. It's the most confusing pandemic we've ever been involved in, Ian. Let's hope there's not a second one.
No, that's right. And of course, it seems to be that it's getting worse. So
sadly,
yeah.
So. Newcastle and the northeast are really getting hit hard, which isn't good. So let's hopefully we find a vaccine soon. Chris Cooper says, Ian with Masters not responding to you at all lately. Does that just not show that he really is not interested in what anyone says outside of his close colleagues?
Well, I think the thing is, I think he'll become interested because I'll pass the news about how he's actually been not responding to us on to the chair of the DCMS Select Committee, who might find that interesting in terms of them just not having any regard for parliamentary scrutiny at all. But you see, the thing is, if you get called to be in front of a select committee, you've got to go. You've got to go.
Okay. Paul Hill says, do you think Shelby should be dropped for the next game, or should we wait and get beaten? Blame him.
I'm not a big fan of John Joe. I think he's too slow. He takes an awful long time to turn round, and I think he gets caught in possession quite a bit. He knocked a lovely ball, but he what it seems to me to do is he knocks a lovely ball and then kind of stand back and admires it, And I want somebody like who's like running off the ball, getting involved in the game, and doing both the aspects that you want, distribution, but also breaking up the play of the other side as well. And I know he's very Marmite, isn't he, John Joe Shelby? Yeah. I'm one of the ones. I'm one of the ones who I regard him as someone who holds the game up from our perspective, when we should be getting forward much quicker.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, and maybe that's why Paul's asked the question. For me, Shelby is a bit of an enigma. He got pushed out of Liverpool and Swansea for the same reason, too lazy at times. He does tend to go in the hoof a little bit, and that's why he fell out with Rafa. Rafa obviously dropped him from the team. He wasn't even anywhere near the squad. Bruce has brought him back in though. Bruce has a relationship with him. He's put his arm around him. I personally feel that Shelby's let Bruce down in a couple of games this season. However, whatever's happened this week behind the scenes, there has definitely something happened. There's been a few shake-ups. So Maximum coming out and saying that he wants to play in a certain position would indicate that he hasn't been happy. There's rumours of other players have had their say. Maybe that's what we needed, a little bit of a set two, which resulted in Steve Bruce coming out and having a go at the press about tactics, and the end result was a 3-1 win. If that's what's going to happen and that's what it takes, so be it. As for Shelvey, I can't change my mind on him. Yesterday was a good day for Shelvey. He had the captain's armband. Maybe he thrived on the extra responsibility. That wonderful ball, which didn't lead to a goal, which was from his own half, straight over the top of the midfield, landed mainly thanks to Wilson's persistence at Wilson's feet, didn't lead to a goal. But, that's the brilliant Shelvey. But we see too little of that. And that is why I think a lot of people criticise John Joe Shelvey. Barry Hogan, he says Steve Bruce will play Loftus-Cheek as a right back. He's supposed to be talking to Aston Villa. We'll see. Raymondo says Man United have never been the same since Howard Webb retired. That's a good one. Jason says Fergie will be crying into his whiskey, and Geordie Jedi says Maguire was hopeless. Yeah, I think he's still got the summer on his mind and his issues which are hanging over him. Kirk says this Premier League avoidance behaviour is suspicious. Hoffman and Masters must be held to account. Timelines must be looked at, and questions must be asked. And I think that will happen. I do think that'll happen here. And I think that, we know PCP, PIF, the Rubens will have a timeline. They will be able to say X, Y, and Z happened. Mike Ashley will have a timeline. He's got the best lawyers on the case. I think it'll happen when it happens, and it'll probably get settled out of court. Yeah.
I think that's a possibility. As long as the consortium holds together, but is it all still together? I mean, is it not just Amanda Staveley and the Reuben brothers now? I mean, are the Saudis out of the equation now?
No, I still think the Saudis are still in it. I think they're just going to sit back and wait until various things are sorted before they come back in. But I'm more interested in what's going on the pitch at the moment, and whatever happens off the pitch will happen. Big shout out to Darren Baldwin Funerals, local independent family business, who have sponsored the StreamYard software this month, and to qtechshop.co.uk. Big thanks to you two lads for helping us out. Two good local businesses. They make pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend. John says, Ian, surely MPs from all sides based in the region can unite together to bring positive influence regarding the takeover. Football and economy will benefit.
Well, sadly, I would have to report that it looks to me like Sunderland's actually got more MPs who support them than Newcastle have. It is interesting. Look, the thing is, you've got to remember that the region's got sort of 25, 27 MPs, but they represent constituencies where Middlesbrough, Hartlepool, Sunderland, Newcastle, and then the smaller clubs as well are represented. I mean, Ian Lavery, who MP for Wansbeck, is a Newcastle fan, but he just doesn't want to come to the games as long as Ashley's in control of the club. So it's it'll be lovely to get everybody together, but I think you've got to remember that people have also got their constituents who are interested in what they're doing. Going back to the previous question, Steve, by the way, on the captaincy, what about someone like Hayden or Fernandez?
Yeah, I mean, for me, if I was managing the team, I would always go for a defender as the captain. I've never been a fan of a midfield captain, but Alan Shearer, captain Newcastle, did it with great aplomb. You've got to be a certain character. I think the one person that stands out in our team who head and shoulders above everybody else in the squad is Richie. Especially with these games, if you listen to them without the sound on, when Richie's playing, he's barking orders, he's this, he's that, he's the other. But there just seems to be, no interest in giving him the captaincy. I find it bizarre. I mean, even Rafa, when Rafa was managing Newcastle, always used to take Richie off. For whatever reason, it always seemed as if they were looking to do a move as well in a transfer window to get him out, and as if he'd done it, he'd done his work and that was it, and they wanted to replace him. And I listen, who am I to argue with Rafa Benitez? But It's just my feeling was, that Richie would make a really good captain. When you listen to Lascelles, for me, doesn't seem to instill confidence. But he must be a great lad off the pitch. I mean, he seems to be like a social manager, and I suppose it depends what you're looking for. Steve Bruce is very much a man manager, by the looks of it. He relies heavily on Steve Agnew and his coaching staff to get the message across. And like I said the other night, when the penalties were taken against Newport, Steve Bruce was nowhere near the lads. Agnew was taking it and getting the names forward. So, but I'd love to see Richie have the opportunity if he was fit to do that. But Bruce has made his mind up. Lascelles is the captain, and when Lascelles isn't playing, it's going to be Shelby. So that's it. Speaking of Bruce.
It is, but that I think it's what we all know, that shows like this and the whole game's all about opinions, and I mean I wouldn't let Shelby anywhere near it myself, but there we go.
Who would you have as captain, then, Ian?
Well, I would look at one of the other defenders or a central midfielder, and I think Fernandez, because I think he leads by example. I think he doesn't let us down, does he ever? I think he's a good solid player, a good solid defender. I mean, I don't know what he's like in terms of his communication, etc., but he always seems to do his job, and that's what you want, somebody who leads by example.
Okay, John Askew's asking whether we should be giving Brucey a bit more credit. We beat West Ham away, and they've been like 1970 Brazil ever since.
And they weren't like 1970 Brazil the day we played them. I mean, I thought they were awful, but they've been like that ever since. Maybe it was just a bad day at the office for them on that game, first game at home, first game of the season, as it were. Credit to them, they've got a good victory under their belt today, and that was against the side that just put 5 past Man City last week. So that's the thing with football at the minute. Everybody's beating everybody else.
Martin Nesbitt says, "Evening, lads. Any view from Ian on the BBC North politics comments about the Saudi deal? I'm not sure what they were."
I'm not sure what that was either.
Send us a message, Martin. Put a message on. Let us know what it was, and we can maybe look at it. L71's had a bad experience with John Joe Shelby. Asked for his autograph for his lad, and he pulled his face and moaned about it. He must have caught him on a bad day. Chris Cooper's going down the COVID route. He says, "How can we get control of the virus when there were 700 uni students were positive and only 70 had symptoms? Is that not an impossible task, Ian?"
Well, that is probably about right. I mean, what they're saying is that of the people who are being tested and found to be positive, 70% of them are asymptomatic, and that is a large part of the problem. Particularly the young, are showing signs of actually having the virus, but being asymptomatic. And the trouble is, we're being told, don't go and get a test unless you've got symptoms. But if 70% of the people who are testing positive are asymptomatic, well, how are they getting a test in the first place? Because you're not meant to go for a test unless you've got symptoms. That seems to me, it seems to me all of it, it's a bit of a mess, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it is. Tom Dixon says, "Do we think Vilka would have a chance in the first team?" The young lad who is imminently going to arrive at St James's Park. I think he's been bought as a development player, isn't he?
Development player, aye. We've had a few of them over the years, haven't we? Diego, remember, so that sort of thing. And some of them come good, some of them don't.
Perez was bought as a development player and ended up getting chucked in at the deep end, and turned out to be a really good signing. So it does work both ways. John Askew says, "I think Tony Blair was a fan. The fact he was MP for Sedgefield might be a factor. Be interesting, and you never know. I mean, some people keep their support hidden." And
he was MP for Sedgefield for quite a number of years before he became the Prime Minister or the leader of the Labour Party. And he never kind of told everybody then, about it. And of course, you see, the thing is, at the time when he became leader of the Labour Party, Newcastle were playing great football, So they were like everybody else's second team, weren't they, back in those days, in the mid-90s.
Yeah, exactly. Jason Carter says, was the petition all in vain, or is still an outcome pending from it? The petition really was set up by a fan. It was the wrong type of petition, but I believe the petition was sent up really to draw attention and to say, look, hey, there's 100,000 people saying this. Pay attention, and I think it had the desired effect, Ian, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I think it did to a large extent. I mean, if you want a petition though to be sort of highlighted in Parliament, there's two routes you can do. You can either do it and actually produce the petition, all the signatures by hand, which an MP then can deliver to the relevant government minister, or you can do it on the gov.uk website. And if you can set up a petition on the gov.uk website, once it gets to 100,000 signatures, it then goes in front of what's called the Petitions Committee, and then they discuss about whether or not there should be a debate in Parliament about it. But of course, what's all been disrupted, all of these things, by COVID-19 and the fact we've got less parliamentary time. Westminster Hall, the second debating chamber, was closed. It's only reopening this week coming. So, there's an awful lot of those things which have been put on the back burner by the COVID pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Barry Hogan says, Steve, what am I going to do during the international break? Thoroughly enjoy watching the match with you guys. Can we not show a classic game and comment on it? Well, it just so happens, Barry, that's what we've talked about. So watch this space. We'll make an announcement this week, and hopefully on Saturday we will be doing just that. We just need to make sure that we've all got a copy of the same game and it's all 90 minutes because we could have some right issues there if some people's only got half the game. Tim Cairns says, what became of the parliamentary question of the Premier League?
Parliamentary questions to the Premier League. I'm not sure what they are, to be honest, Steve.
Now, Martin, if you can get back to us, and Tim, you can get back to us, let us know. We'll find out. Kirk makes a really good point. He says the captain must be the player who holds the most respect in the squad. It doesn't matter which position he plays. Good point, that, Ian, really.
Yeah. And, John, I mean, I like the word gravitas, so but
but I think he's right. I think he's right 100%. That it has to be somebody who's got the respect of the players. Maybe that's Lascelles, and I mean, you do need people like that in the dressing room. There's always been like players committees, and I believe Shelby's on it, Richie's on it, Lascelles is on it. The old squad, the old guard, if you like, the previous team committee was made up with people like Joey Barton, Kevin Nolan, Steve Harper, Alan Smith. So it's older heads in the team who you obviously like make people welcome. Andy Carroll, I would imagine, is probably on the players committee because of his connection with the club, his locality, and I don't know. It's just those kind of players. You would never see Andy Carroll as a captain, I don't think. John Justice Allen says Wilson would make a good captain on the pitch because he's in the Shearer mould.
Too early to see.
Stu says, hope Ashley's legal team exposes the Premier League. Trull says, nope, no credit for Bruce. I'll give that to the players. And Gary Douglas says, Alex Ferguson's got big shoes to fill as nobody has filled them, Steve. Yeah, I mean, it is like the ghost of Alex Ferguson hovering over the person who's manager at Man United, isn't it?
Well, it was a bit like that when Busby retired. They had problems, in terms of who was going to fill Busby's shoes, and you had some strange names coming in and managing the club. So you had Tommy Doherty and Wilf McGuinness and people like that. And they didn't have a succession plan, and as they haven't had, since Ferguson retired as well.
No, definitely not. I'd say there's obesity and fitness. That is the factor, not age, that knacks you with COVID. Yeah, a lot of people saying that you need to be healthy. But again, I'm not a scientist. I couldn't say yes or no to that.
Well, I mean, it's also things like diabetes. It seems to be a significant issue. But also anybody with pre-existing health conditions, it can be problematical, particularly if they're respiratory conditions. It causes problems for them.
Yeah, exactly. Steve, are we going to get what we deserve, i.e. new ambitious owners soon or what? One can only hope. One can only hope. Let's just hope that Newcastle can maintain their position in the Premier League, and that that will go ahead. Jason says, Ian, I've just discovered that the former Prime Minister of Thailand, I'm not even going to pronounce that, is a Newcastle fan. He was born in Newcastle, apparently. Strange but true.
No reason to disbelieve that. It could be entirely possible. Entirely possible.
Troll says Dubravka for captain. Goalkeepers very rarely are captains, but I don't disagree with it. Gary says, do you think if the Newcastle footballers have a choice in their favourite positions for the club, will Newcastle be better now? I think Gary asked a question before. Should players be allowed to choose where they want to play? It's got to be down to the manager, hasn't it, Ian?
Yeah, well, the thing is, if they all want to play centre forward or they all want to play inside right, I mean, you've got to have 10 players, outfield players on the pitch who basically complement each other in the positions, and I think sometimes it's difficult to get every player into the position that they would ideally love to play, but we know that players these days are expected to be much more flexible and adaptable, and therefore from that perspective, you might not always play in your most favoured position, otherwise you might not get a game. I mean, St. Maximum yesterday started off on the right and finished off on the left. And I think he looked better on the left, frankly, than he did in the first half. On the right, he certainly had the beating of their left back. Like,
yeah, Tom Dixon says St. Maximum's house looks lovely with a massive indoor swimming pool. Is that what you're doing? Is that what you do on your weekends, Tom, when you're not watching Dunstan? Tim says Chi raised the issue in Parliament on the basis of a petition, all hoping it was going to get the Premier League to be questionable. Right.
Well, yeah. The petition that she put in Parliament, that was calling for government really intervention. I don't think Oliver Dowden was wanting to get involved at all. And the thing is, you see, I think that the whole thing has been embarrassing from the government's perspective, because they wanted to keep out of it and allow it to go through. I think the government were quite sort of happy to have the Saudis take over Newcastle United. After all, it was only about, I think, 12 weeks into the saga going on that they decided to allow export licenses for weapons again to Saudi Arabia. So it would have been consistent with that. If you can sell weapons to them from the perspective of, are they fit and proper people in order to run in their own country, surely that they wouldn't be ruled out from owning a football club.
Okay, Chris says, Ian, without your MP hat on, do you think the Premier League has been doing business with other people, to put it politely? I'm not saying dodgy.
Well, I would love to know. I would love to know, and I think proper parliamentary scrutiny of the whole governance of the game is very much required. I think the governance of the game does leave an awful lot to be desired, and that's at club level up and down the country. You only got to look at some of the antics which have been brought to the attention, where fans have been left in the lurch. You look what happened to clubs like Bury, Blackpool, Coventry, in the past. So the governance levels at a local club level, but also of the game in totality. It does need a shake-up, and it does need to be much more open and transparent.
Yeah, of course it does, 100%. Last couple of questions. Chris says Sultan of Brunei's son is a massive Newcastle supporter. Michael Kelly says a fit Kieran Clark will be an ideal captain. Tom's asking what your thoughts are on the new metro trains coming to the northeast. It's about time we had some new ones in place of the old ones, he says.
Yeah, well, I mean, long overdue. We really should have had the capital money from the government probably five years before we got it. We've done historically very poorly in terms of transport infrastructure investment in the northeast, even on a per head of population. I know that we're a small region in population terms, 2.6 million across the whole of the northeast region. But if you look at it spending per head of population, the southeast and London gets much more than us. And when we're arguing for future investment, I think government always say, well, they put some money in and think it's okay, but some money, like 300 million quid for the metro, doesn't actually compensate us for the decades of underinvestment that we've had in the past. So there we go.
Yep, good answer. Steve, your shows are outstanding, cover all aspects of the fan base. Thank you very much. Barry says, Ian, as always, amazing insights. It shows us that MPs do care. Paul says we won't need them trains if this COVID keeps on killing the economy, which is I suppose is a fair point. Martin's getting back to us about the BBC politics thing. He says I tweeted it to you, Steve. Basically, 2 MPs on BBC North politics chatting about the Premier League helping out the EFL Trust, and one lad says the Premier League need to close and do the takeover deal first. Right, okay. Right. I mean that's good to hear someone saying that. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's nice to show that there is support, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And the deal, the takeover deal. I mean, I think we really do need to expose the Premier League's role in that. I mean, look, if they were going to kill the deal stone dead, why didn't they do it after 2 or 3 weeks and then everybody could have moved on? Everybody could have moved on, but it just took so long, and we then got into a situation where the club was without a new owner, but we were also into the opening of the transfer window, and it just seems like just torture from that perspective. Yes,
Chris Cooper says, can I just say Ian is the second best MP around behind Catherine. Must be McKinnell. She's fantastic. And Jason says, I wasn't a fan of any politician until Ian came on the show. So there you are. You're changing people's minds, Ian, which is great. John just says, is the role of captain really that important? Ideally, you want 11 captains out there. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, you want everybody pulling their weight, everybody helping out each other, everybody putting an arm round each other, and everybody picking up the other players when something goes wrong, Yeah,
and Stu says the special one hammers his old team. There will be devastation in Royal Tunbridge Wells tonight. Christopher,
it's Woking. I think Woking's the capital of the Man U fans, isn't it?
Definitely. Chris says Matt Hancock's uncle is a Geordie and took him to United versus Manchester United matches, so he sounds a bit of a front runner. Nah, I cannot see it. I really cannot. Yeah. I cannot see him being a Newcastle fan. I'd like to think he was, but I really, really can't. Gary Hannett says I think the Saudis will buy Newcastle, but nobody knows when. Yeah, in time. I think so. Yeah, and I think it's right that they won't want all the dirty linen aired, in public. Really, Ian. That hour has passed over. Great. Anything you want to promote or anything you want to say, Ian? Anything coming up that we should know about?
No, the only thing I want to say, Steve, is look, this bloody virus is with us. The number of cases is, I'm afraid to say, very, very high indeed. So just please stay safe. Don't take any risks, and let's see everybody else back, next week and the week after, because I'm afraid to say it does get people. It does get people. I mean, I've just been told today of a very good friend of mine who's a big Newcastle fan. Tony Nicholson is tested positive. So if you're watching, Tony, get well soon, mate.
Get well soon from all at the show as well. Thanks again to Darren Baldwin Funerals and Q-Tech for sponsoring us. Tomorrow night, I'm back at the later time at 7:30 with the girls, with Kendall, with Sav, with Katie and with Samantha. Always good to hear the girls' opinion. I'm sure they'll all be buzzing after yesterday's result. And Ian, absolute pleasure, mate. You have a good week. Give them hell down in Westminster, and we'll see you again soon, mate.
Take care, Steve. Thanks very much. Bye-bye now.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Attack. It feels like I've been been talking to myself again.